Hi everyone, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com, and today we are going to be assembling one of my favorite designs. This bag was originally designed in 2013, I believe, and I have sold hundreds of them in my Etsy shop and in the little boutique that I had. So today I want to revisit that pattern. If you have been a subscriber to the channel for some time, you have made a couple of variations of this bag with me. And if you are a Sewspire patron, you already have access to the step-by-step PDF tutorial. If you are just joining us, I will put the link to that written tutorial, which you can purchase for a nominal fee, down in the notes, so check that out. And then before we get started, I just want to mention to you that my 9th session of AMC Andrea's Masterclass begins this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. That is also an exclusive benefit that I offer to Sewspire patrons. So if you are interested in my design process and becoming a better bag maker and learning from other bag makers, please do take a few minutes and hop on over to the Patreon page and check that opportunity out. So without further ado, we're going to get started sewing my drawstring bag. This bag makes a wonderful purse, and it is one of my favorite bags to carry in the summer. So as we go through, I'm going to give you all the measurements for the bag, and then if you'd like everything in one place, go ahead and purchase the PDF, and you can save that, download that, print that, and you'll have everything nice and tidy for you. So I hope that saves you a little bit of time. So I have a full bobbin, and we're just going to sew until the bobbin runs out. So for this bag, you're going to have a drawstring closure, and that drawstring is crafted from 2 pieces of fabric that measure 3 by 44 inches or 3 inches wide by a full cut of fabric, and you're going to craft those drawstrings just like I do all of the straps. Press it in half long ways, and then bring those outer edges inward to meet on that center press line, and fold everything over to create a really long drawstring. And in total you're going to have 2 of those, and you can run 1 row of stitching down that open edge and you should be just fine. If you really want to, if you love the color of your thread or you want to add a little more stability, go ahead and add a 2nd row of stitching to that 2nd side. And for this, I'm going to use a 3.0 stitch length and a 90-14 needle, and I'm just lining that edge of the drawstring right up with the edge of the foot. Oh, looks like the bobbin's out. Just kidding. I think I don't have it in there right. I just popped it back in. Let's pop the trunk and see what's happening inside of there. And then you'll repeat that process for the 2nd drawstring. And it is fun to choose a coordinating print for these drawstrings. You don't see a lot of them in the bag, so because they're relatively small. So go ahead and choose something bold for your drawstrings. Then the next thing that we're going to do is craft the double handles. So these handles are a little more narrow than my standard handle. I cut these 5 inches wide, and these ones are 30 inches long. In the pattern, I cut them 22 inches long. You know that you can customize your handles to suit your needs. And so these handles are crafted in the same way. You're going to press long ways, bring those outer edges inward to meet on that center press line, and then fold that over. I have a 2.5 inch wide strip of quilt batting in the center there, and I tend to use the warm and natural quilt batting. That's just my preference, but you can use anything that you have on hand. Fusible fleece is awesome. If you have another interfacing that you like, that's fine as well. So with the straps, I do run the row of stitching down the open end first, and then a second row of stitching down the folded edge, and then I come back in and for this bag run a row of stitching right down the center. So there are 3 rows of stitching per handle, and you're going to have 2 handles. Alright, and that's what those handles look like. The 3 rows of stitching is just perfect for this width of handle. So repeat that process for your second handle. Okay, so now I have 2 padded handles and 2 drawstrings. Those are going to get set aside. I'm going to lower down the camera so you can see my cutting surface here, and we are going to start working on the pockets and the interior and exterior panels. Okay, so the pockets are crafted from 2 panels which measure 18 by 18, and I've taken the top and the bottom edge and press that over 1/2 inch, and then I press those in half, so I have a pocket that's approximately 9 inches tall by 18 inches wide. And then I like to stagger those lips just a bit to give some texture and definition to the top edge of that pocket. So you're going to prep 2 of those panels, and these are interior pockets that are going to be divided in thirds or in half, depending upon your contents. And so you're just going to run 2 rows of stitching down that top edge to finish those pockets. And then repeat that process for the second pocket. And then I like to go ahead and press in my vertical pocket dividers, and so I'm going to go ahead and divide all of my pockets in thirds. And so I'm just going to head on over to the iron and press in these lines, and then those help me divide the pockets nice and straight. Okay, then we are going to work on the exterior body panels. I have this really fabulous fabric here. I am so drawn to the orange today. I just couldn't help myself. I had to choose this gorgeous grunge print here. It's so beautiful. I'm going to have to work really hard to keep Megan from stealing this bag. She loves music and she loves this drawstring bag, so I know as soon as she sets her sights on this, it's going to be disappearing. So we have 2 of these 18 by 18 inch exterior panels, and we also have 2 18 by 18 inch interior panels. I am just going to line the exterior panels with that same warm and natural batting. You definitely can get away with lining the interior with the warm and natural as well. If you use an alternative interfacing, just make sure that it is fairly light, because If you use something too stiff, the drawstring won't function on this bag, okay? So just keep that in mind. So the actual gussets that we thread the drawstrings through measure 4 by 18. I typically craft these in the same fabric as the exterior, which is why I like to add that little pop of interest by choosing a coordinating print for the drawstrings. And so take the short ends of those gussets, press them over 1/2 inch, and then press the long edges inward 1/2 inch so that all the edges of this gusset are finished. You're going to go ahead and run 2 rows of stitching down the short edge of this to keep those folds in place. And you will have 2 of those gussets, so repeat the same process for the second one. Okay, and then your gussets get positioned on those exterior body panels 3 inches from the top and centered. And I'm going to go ahead and set up the second panel so that I can attach those gussets in the same section. So again, 3 inches from the top and centered. And then you're going to run 2 rows of stitching, one at the top and one at the bottom. And I do come back in and add that second row of stitching, which is just purely an accent. But before you add that second row, go ahead and get it attached at the top and the bottom so that it does not shift. That's what that panel looks like once you've attached the gusset. So the drawstrings will be thread through these little openings on each side, and so you need to repeat that process for the second panel. And then once you have the gusset attached to both of those panels, then you can turn those panels right sides facing, and I do attempt to line up those gussets. The big thing here is when you're sewing these side seams, you do not want to accidentally stitch through those gussets and then close up the opening. So that's why I attempt to line those up. You're not going to really notice if they're misaligned, because when you thread the drawstring, everything's going to ruffle up. But if they are misaligned, you're more likely to stitch through those. Now for this bag, you're really going to need to pay attention to your seam allowance. You can probably get away with 5/8 of an inch if you sew nice and straight. If not, maybe take that down to 3/8 of an inch, because again, you can see your stitch lines. Just don't encroach upon that area, because then you're going to sew those gussets shut. And then once you've made it around those 3 sides, go ahead and take a peek and make sure that you have captured all of those layers. So you have 2 layers of batting and 2 layers of fabric. It's really easy to go back and fix that now if you did not capture all 4 layers. And then once you're confident that that has happened, then you can go ahead and trim up these seams to 1/4 inch. Okay, then we're going to create depth with this bag by aligning the side seam with the base seam. And the way that you do that is reach inside and look and get the side seam and the base seam aligned, and then press that well with your hands to make sure that you don't have any wrinkles. And if you do, just reach inside and press everything nice and flat. And you get to decide how deep you want this bag. 5 inches is my personal preference for this particular design. And so what I like to do is align those seams and then use a Sharpie marker to draw in the line that I am going to be stitching along. And this just keeps my stitching nice and straight. So again, that's 5 inches across there. So I'm just going to put this right up on that line and stitch across. And then I'm going to repeat that process on the opposite side. So I'm reaching inside of there, visually confirming the side seam and the base seam are aligned, and then I'm flattening that nice. And I'm going to measure across there 5 inches. And the 5 inches is this spans right here. And then I stitch right across there. And everything to the right of the seam can get trimmed. And now the exterior of this bag is complete, so you can turn that around right side out, and there's what the corners look like. I did a pretty good job, and they're nice and straight. So this is a good size bag for everyday use, because you're going to be able to expand it, or you can draw in that drawstring and make it a little smaller. So you're going to take that top edge and you're going to fold that over about 1 inch, And you just want to make sure that that's nice and even across there. And then you can pin or clip that in place, and then we're going to attach those pockets to the interior panels, which also measure 18 by 18. So for those pockets, we're going to have to bump those up from the base and get them out of the way of the depth of this, which we will fashion in the same way. So don't position your interior pockets all the way along the base of these panels. You're going to need to bump up at least 4 inches from the base of these panels. And so we've already prepped the pockets and pressed in those stitch lines. So I'm just going to position my pockets 4 inches up from the base. And I want to go ahead and set up both panels so that I can do all that stitching in one session. Okay, so for the pockets, I'm going to stitch across the base first, and then I'm going to run 2 vertical rows of stitching to create 3 wide, tall pockets. And I start at the top for those vertical divisions, and I back stitch several times to reinforce. Oh guys, the bobbin ran out for real this time. So that will conclude our sewing session for today. But if you are in a hurry to finish this project, as mentioned, I do have a step-by-step PDF tutorial. This is one of my full tutorials, so it has photos that will guide you all the way through the rest of this process. Or another option is you can join me next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will finish up this gorgeous bag. I want to thank you all for joining me today. It's my absolute pleasure to show up for you each week and share sewing inspiration and my original designs with you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see some of you on Thursday night for AMC 9. Again, all those links will be down in the notes for you. Have a wonderful week, and as always, please know the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. See you then.
Hi, I'm Marissa, and I'm a podcaster.
Marissa and I have teamed up to build a virtual business community.
We would love to have you join us for our inaugural course, in which we will share the 5 things you need to know before you launch your podcast or YouTube channel.
The first thing you need to know is your why is your fuel.
The second thing you need to know is relationships are opportunities.
And the third thing is value and vision go hand in hand.
The fourth thing is action happens after awareness.
And last but not least, details are customer magnets.
Andrea and I will deep dive into these 5 elements.
We know you're busy, so the course is set up so you can move at your own pace.
All things considered, this is a tremendous value at $37. We really wanted to bring this to as many people as possible.
We're excited to see you inside of our community.